Muslim cleaning lady quietly notices what no one did. Minutes later, she saves the Millionaire CEO. We have a dream of reaching 1,000 subscribers by the end of this month. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and become part of our dream too. The morning rush inside Northwall Industries was always the same, heels clicking across marble floors, executives clutching tablets, interns scrambling to look important. But Amina Bashir moved silently among them, unnoticed as always. Her navy cleaning uniform blended into the background, her hijab pinned neatly, her expression calm. She didn't mind being invisible, it was how she kept her peace. While others rushed past the skyscraper's gleaming hallways, she observed everything with careful eyes. Dust patterns. Smudged glass. Forgotten coffee cups. And sometimes, things people shouldn't forget. Today, the atmosphere felt different. Tense. Electric. Whispers drifted through the corridors. The CEO is in early, board members are panicking, something huge is happening upstairs. Amina simply tightened her gloves, pushed her cleaning cart forward, and quietly made her way toward the top floor, where she always arrived before anyone else. On the executive floor, she unlocked the wide double doors and stepped into the enormous corner office that belonged to Ethan Marlowe, billionaire CEO, and the kind of man the world recognized instantly. Photos of him hung everywhere in the building, shaking hands with presidents, cutting ribbons, winning awards. But the office itself told a different story. Papers scattered. A glass of untouched water. A wastebasket overflowing with shredded documents. Something wasn't right. Amina had worked there 3 years and had never seen the room in such disarray. She set down her cart and began her routine, wiping surfaces, collecting trash, but her instincts kept tugging at her attention. On the far wall, beneath a decorative panel she had dusted 1,000 times, something glinted. Something mechanical. She paused. A tiny device, barely noticeable, nestled behind the decorative paneling. It wasn't part of the office design. It had a blinking red indicator, so faint it could have been mistaken for a reflection. But Amina had grown up fixing radios with her grandfather. She knew electronics when she saw them. And this was not a harmless gadget. She leaned closer, her pulse quickening. Wires. A miniature circuit board. A timed component. This wasn't decoration, this was a surveillance bug, and a sophisticated one. Whoever put it there knew exactly where the CEO conducted confidential meetings. Amina's breath hitched. Someone was spying on Ethan Marlowe. She stepped back, heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, the elevator chimed. Voices echoed down the hall, executives, the board, Ethan himself. They were heading straight toward the office. If they walked in now, if they started talking in this room, someone out there would hear every word. Amina acted without thinking. With swift, precise hands, she lifted the decorative panel, disabled the device using the small metal clip she always kept in her pocket, and slipped the bug into her uniform before anyone entered. The panel clicked back into place just as the doors swung open. Ethan Marlowe and half the board stepped inside, mid-argument. They didn't even glance at her. She lowered her eyes respectfully and continued cleaning as if nothing had happened. But inside, her heart hammered like a war drum. The CEO paced back and forth, completely unaware that a disaster had been seconds away. The board argued over missing contracts, financial leaks, betrayed deals. Ethan looked exhausted, stressed, vulnerable. None of them knew the truth, that 30 seconds earlier, Amina had silently saved them from the worst corporate breach in the company's history. And no one, not even Ethan Marlowe, had any idea what she had just prevented. Amina kept her eyes lowered, pretending to focus on polishing the glass table while the board members' voices rose behind her. But every word they said sharpened the tension in the room. Ethan Marlowe stood at the head of the table, shoulders tense beneath his tailored suit. His face, usually calm on magazine covers, was tight with frustration. Someone leaked the acquisition files, he said, voice clipped. Only 5 people had access. 5. The board shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a tall woman with silver hair, spoke carefully. Ethan, the timing is too perfect. Someone knew exactly when to strike. Amina swallowed hard. Someone had known. Someone had planted a surveillance device right behind the CEO's chair. Her chest tightened. If she hadn't found it this morning, if she had arrived 10 minutes later, these people would have spilled every secret directly into a spy's hands. She moved to the far corner, tightening her grip on the cleaning cart. The tiny bug felt heavy in her pocket now, like a stone pulling her downward. She couldn't turn it in. If she approached security, they might fire her, accuse her of planting it, or worse. She was a cleaning lady, a Muslim woman in a job where people barely acknowledged her existence. She didn't have the power to challenge anyone here. But she also couldn't ignore what she had seen. Someone wanted Ethan Marlowe destroyed. And Amina had seen enough in her life to know how far powerful people would go to protect their ambitions. As the board continued arguing, she glanced subtly at Ethan. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion etched deeper into his features. He had no idea danger was pressing in on him from all sides. Before she could think further, Ethan's voice cut through the room. "Everyone out," he ordered. "Give me 10 minutes." Chairs scraped. Papers shuffled. The board filed out reluctantly. But Amina didn't move, because she wasn't done cleaning. Ethan barely noticed her at first. He dropped into his chair, exhaling long and slow, running a hand through his hair. The weight of the company rested on him like chains. Then, finally, he looked at her, really looked at her. "Amina, right?" he asked. She nodded, surprised he knew her name at all. He offered a tired, almost apologetic smile. "Sorry you had to hear that mess. Must be uncomfortable." She shook her head. "I hear nothing, sir. I only clean." Ethan's smile faded slightly, replaced by something she couldn't read. "Sometimes I envy that," he murmured. Amina finished wiping the last glass panel. Just as she started toward the door, her foot tapped something on the floor. A USB drive, sleek, black, deliberately placed near Ethan's chair. Her pulse spiked. She bent as if picking up trash, slipped it quickly into her cart, and straightened before Ethan noticed. Her instinct screamed, this wasn't an accident. Someone had dropped this during the meeting. Someone inside this room. She forced a steady breath. She needed to examine it somewhere safe, somewhere private. Because now she wasn't holding just one secret, she was holding two. Ethan looked at her again, softer this time. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for helping keep this place running." She bowed her head and left the room slowly, heart pounding. The moment the doors closed behind her, her walk turned into a near run. Amina had come to work to clean. Instead, she had stumbled into a conspiracy capable of destroying everything. Amina hurried down the service hallway, her cleaning cart rattling as she pushed it faster than she ever had before. The USB in her pocket felt heavier than metal, heavier even than the surveillance bug she'd hidden earlier. She ducked into the supply closet, the only place in the entire skyscraper where no one paid attention. Closing the door softly behind her, she leaned against it, breathing hard. The tiny room smelled of bleach and cardboard, but today it felt like a sanctuary. With trembling fingers, she pulled the USB from her pocket. Someone had placed it near Ethan's chair, deliberately. Someone attending that meeting wanted the CEO to find it, or wanted someone else to pick it up first. She turned the small device over in her hands. There were no markings, no labels. Just cold intent. Amina lifted the flap on her cleaning cart, revealing her old, battered second-hand tablet. She wasn't supposed to have personal electronics at work, but no one cared enough to stop her. She plugged the USB in. The screen lit up. A single folder appeared, Northern Star. She opened it. At first, she didn't understand what she was seeing, encrypted documents, financial records, offshore accounts. But as she scrolled further, her stomach dropped. Emails. Internal memos. A detailed timeline. Someone inside Northwall Industries had been siphoning millions from the company into private shell corporations over months, maybe years. A giant corporate betrayal. And every file pointed to one clear target, Ethan Marlowe. He wasn't the thief. He was the one being framed as the thief. The board would find this USB eventually. And they would believe it. Her breath tightened. Someone wanted the CEO out, and badly. Suddenly, footsteps echoed down the hall. Amina's heart lurched. She yanked the USB from the tablet, shoved everything back into her cart, and snapped the closet light off. The footsteps stopped right outside. She clutched her cleaning rag, forcing her breath to become steady. The knob rattled. She froze. Then a voice she recognized, calm, icy, unmistakably calculated, spoke from the other side. "We know someone found it," the voice murmured to another person. "It wasn't on the floor anymore. Whoever has it needs to be dealt with." The words crawled like ice up her spine. She recognized the voice. It belonged to Victor Hale, Northwall's chief financial officer. A man whose smile never reached his eyes. A man with access to everything. A man who had been in that boardroom. "Find the drive before Ethan does," Victor continued. "And if anyone saw it, handle it quietly." Amina pressed herself against the door, holding her breath until tears formed in her eyes. When the footsteps faded, she waited an extra 30 seconds before moving. Her hands shook so violently she had to grip the cart to steady herself. She had stumbled into something far bigger than she imagined. This wasn't corporate drama. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a takedown, methodical, ruthless, and already in motion. Amina swallowed hard. She wasn't a detective. She wasn't an investigator. She cleaned floors. She wiped tables. She blended into the background because it kept her safe. But today, her invisibility might be the only advantage she had. She tucked the USB deep into the lining of her uniform. If Victor Hale wanted to take down Ethan Marlowe, he would have to go through someone he didn't even see. Because Amina Bashir had noticed what no one else did. And now she knew too much to walk away. Amina spent the next hour cleaning hallways she had already cleaned, just to blend in. Every time she passed an executive, she forced her movements to stay slow, predictable, invisible. But inside, her mind raced. Victor Hale was framing Ethan Marlowe for a massive financial crime. He had planted a surveillance bug, a USB filled with fabricated evidence, and probably more she hadn't found yet. He wasn't just sabotaging the CEO, he was preparing to destroy him completely. And if Victor even suspected that Amina had the USB, she wouldn't just lose her job. Men like him didn't let loose ends walk away. She needed to warn Ethan. But how could she, when security would never let a cleaning lady near a high-level executive? She tightened her grip on the handle of her cart. Something had to change. And she would need to act quickly. As she reached the top floor again, she noticed the door to Ethan's office standing open. 2 security guards were inside, rummaging through drawers, scanning the room with handheld devices. They weren't searching for stolen property, they were searching for the bug she had already removed. Amina's heart skipped. Victor was moving faster than expected. She forced herself to push her cart forward. Just clean, she told herself. Just walk. But as she passed the office, she heard Ethan inside, speaking in low, frustrated tones. "You're telling me someone bugged my office and I'm only hearing this now?" His voice cracked slightly. He sounded betrayed, cornered. The head of security cleared his throat. "We believe the device is still here, sir." Amina felt her stomach twist. They would never find it. And when they couldn't, Victor would shift blame again. She backed away quickly, turning down the quieter corridor that led to the executive lounge. She needed a plan, something that would get Ethan alone without raising suspicion. Amina was about to retreat into a side stairwell when she saw him walking toward her, alone for the first time since morning. He looked exhausted, anger simmering in his eyes. She paused her cart, her heart hammering. This might be her only chance. Ethan slowed as he approached, recognizing her. Amina, he said softly, I'm sorry if the office chaos bothered you earlier. She swallowed. This wasn't the time for hesitation. Sir, her voice trembled. He noticed. His expression softened. Is something wrong? She scanned the hallway, empty. No cameras. No one listening. It was now or never. She stepped closer, lowering her voice until it was barely above a whisper. I found something, she said. In your office. Before you arrived. Ethan blinked, confused. Found what? She hesitated only a second before she slipped the USB from her sleeve and pressed it into his palm. Someone put this near your chair, she whispered. And the bug. I disconnected it before you entered. Ethan froze. His breath caught. You disarmed it? She nodded. Someone is trying to trap you. I heard them. They said whoever found this. She stopped, realizing how dangerous her words were. Ethan looked at her differently now, not as a cleaning lady, but as someone who had just done more to protect him than half his executives ever had. He closed his fingers around the USB, his jaw tightening. Amina, you just saved my life. He looked down the hallway, suddenly alert. Meet me in my private conference room in 10 minutes. Don't let anyone see you follow me. And don't trust anyone. Amina nodded, pulse quickening with fear and resolve. Ethan turned sharply, heading toward the secure wing, already unlocking his phone and issuing orders. Amina pushed her cart away, forcing her steps to stay steady even as adrenaline flooded her limbs. She had crossed a line. There was no going back. She wasn't invisible anymore, not to Ethan, and soon, not to Victor Hale. Because Amina Bashir had finally stepped into the light. And the conspirators in Northwall Industries were about to feel it. Amina waited exactly 9 minutes, not 10, before slipping quietly toward the private conference room. Her instincts told her Victor Hale had eyes everywhere, and she refused to be predictable. She cleaned a hallway she didn't need to clean, stopped by a vending machine she didn't need to use, then doubled back and took the service stairwell. By the time she reached the conference room, her pulse was pounding in her ears. She tapped softly on the door. It opened instantly. Ethan Marlowe stood inside, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, the usual polish wiped from his expression. He looked shaken. Not by her, but by what she had given him. The USB lay on the table between multiple laptops and security tablets. Files were open, windows scattered across screens. Come in, he said quietly. You need to see this. Amina stepped forward, her breath catching as she read the documents spread out before her. Bank transfers with Ethan's forged signature. Fake memos approving illegal wire routing. Dozens of offshore accounts created under his identity. Every file pointed to Ethan as the architect of a massive financial crime. Enough to destroy his career. Enough to send him to prison for life. This looks real, Amina whispered. Ethan nodded grimly. It is real. But I didn't do any of this. He rubbed his forehead. This is a perfect takedown. Controlled leaks. Fabricated evidence. Timed releases. He pointed to the timestamps. All of these files were created over months. They planned this long before today. Amina swallowed hard. Victor Hale, she whispered. Ethan didn't react with confusion. He reacted with the exhaustion of a man who had suspected but couldn't prove it. He's been waiting for the right moment, Ethan murmured. And today was supposed to be it. Amina glanced at him. Why now? Ethan leaned back, eyes darkening. Because I refused to sign off on a deal Victor pushed, one that would have funneled company money into a private network he controls. His jaw clenched. He needed me gone. Cleanly. Silently. Amina understood immediately. The bug wasn't meant to spy. It was meant to catch him saying something, anything, that could be twisted as guilt. And the USB was the final nail. He thought you'd find it, Amina said. Ethan nodded. And if I reacted too quickly, he'd call it an admission of guilt. He looked at her, eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. But you found it first. You saw everything. Amina stood still, letting the weight of that truth settle. She wasn't just witnessing corruption, she had become the one thing Victor couldn't anticipate, an invisible woman who suddenly wasn't invisible at all. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Amina, you've put yourself in danger. She shook her head. You're the one being hunted. He paused. Not anymore. Not alone. She didn't expect those words to affect her, but they did. For 3 years, she had walked these halls unseen. Now the most powerful man in the building was depending on her. Trusting her. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't small. She wasn't just a cleaning lady. She had skills, intelligence, instincts, and courage she never realized she possessed. Ethan straightened. We need proof Victor did this. And we're going to get it. Amina blinked. How? He looked at her with a steady, deliberate confidence. Because Victor Hale thinks you're invisible. He paused. Let's use that. Amina's pulse steadied. She nodded once, fiercely. If Victor wanted war. He had just underestimated the wrong woman. The plan formed quickly, sharper and more dangerous than anything Amina had ever imagined. Ethan Marlowe paced the small conference room, outlining the steps with crisp precision. Victor keeps all his real operations off the company network, he said. He's too smart to leave a trail. But he isn't expecting someone he doesn't see. His eyes lifted toward her with intention. Amina's pulse quickened. For years she had moved quietly through hallways, elevators, offices, ignored by executives who never bothered to look up. Now that invisibility would become her greatest weapon. He trusts you not to exist, Ethan said. That's exactly why you're the one who can get close. Amina breathed slowly, letting courage replace fear. She nodded. Tell me what you need. Ethan exhaled with relief, because he already knew she would say yes. Victor Hale kept a private workspace on the restricted 44th floor, accessible only to senior leadership. It was there, Ethan believed, that Victor stored the real evidence, forged signatures, manipulated timestamps, transfer logs, and communications that would reveal who else was involved. He never leaves that office without locking down his system, Ethan explained. But he does leave it unattended during board calls. 15 minutes, that's all we'll get. Amina looked down at her hands. I clean the 44th floor every Thursday, she said quietly. Ethan's eyebrows raised. Then today, he won't suspect a thing. Amina felt a tremor of nerves ripple through her. What if I'm wrong? What if he comes back early? Ethan's gaze hardened. Then we'll deal with it together. It wasn't reassurance, it was a vow. She left through the service stairs, carrying only her cleaning cart and a small encrypted drive Ethan had given her. Her steps were steady, but inside her chest, her heartbeat thundered like war drums. When she reached the 44th floor, the hallway was silent, polished floors, mirrored walls, everything pristine and untouched. Victor's office sat at the far end, its frosted glass door closed. Amina approached with the same routine she used daily, quiet steps, head lowered, not a single motion drawing suspicion. She scanned the hallway, empty. Security cameras were turned slightly away. Victor had adjusted them himself, likely to avoid catching his own illicit activities. Ironically, that blind spot protected her now. She slid the master keycard Ethan had borrowed into the door's lock. The panel blinked green. The door clicked open. Her breath hitched. This is it. Inside, Victor's office was a stark contrast to Ethan's. Minimalist. Surgical. Every item perfectly placed. No family photos. No personal touches. Only files, screens, and a coldness that made her skin crawl. She moved quickly, wheeling the cleaning cart inside to block the view from the hallway. The computer hummed quietly on the desk, logged in, its screensaver pulsing. She plugged in Ethan's encrypted drive. The device activated instantly, launching a silent audit program. Messages flashed across the screen, locating hidden directories, decrypting shadow server, collecting tampered logs. Amina exhaled in trembling relief. She was doing it. She was actually doing it. But then, a noise. Footsteps. Approaching. Heavy. Confident. Her blood turned to ice. Someone was coming down the hall. And the closer the steps came, the more she realized something terrible. Those footsteps did not belong to Victor Hale alone. Amina's breath froze in her lungs. The footsteps outside weren't rushed or hesitant, they were purposeful, synchronized, belonging to more than one person. Someone was with Victor. She glanced at the screen. Ethan's audit program was only 62% complete. Too slow. Too exposed. She scanned the room for escape routes, none. Only one way out, and the footsteps were heading directly toward it. She pushed her cleaning cart toward the desk, shielding the glowing computer screen as much as possible, and turned her back just as the office door handle began to twist. Her heartbeat thundered so loudly she was afraid they would hear it. The door swung open. Victor Hale stepped inside, his expression sharp as a blade, followed by the last person she expected, Allison Keene, the silver-haired board member who had sat across from the CEO that morning pretending to share his frustration. Her cold smile held no warmth, only calculation. "I told you," she murmured to Victor. "Someone moved the USB. This floor is where we start." Amina kept her head bowed, hands gripping the cart so hard her knuckles hurt. She murmured softly, "Just cleaning, sir," hoping her voice sounded small enough to be ignored. For a moment, Victor didn't look her way at all. He moved toward his desk, reaching for his tablet. Then he froze. A faint reflection of the active computer screen glowed across the glossy surface of his desktop. He turned sharply. His eyes narrowed. "Why is my computer awake?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. Amina's pulse exploded. She forced herself to move slowly, pretending to wipe a nearby shelf. "Oh," she said gently, "when I set my cleaning supplies down, maybe I bumped the desk." Victor's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, scanning her face as if seeing her for the first time. "What's your name?" he asked. She swallowed. "Amina." He nodded slowly, too slowly. "You've worked here 3 years?" "Yes, sir." His eyes drifted toward the desk again. "Interesting. You've never touched anything on my desk before." Allison's icy voice cut in behind him. She shouldn't be in here at all. Amina's mind raced. Ethan had warned her, "Don't trust anyone. Don't let anyone see you follow me." And now she understood why. Allison Keene wasn't just a bystander, she was part of Victor's scheme. Victor stepped toward her now, closing the distance until he stood only inches away. "Tell me, Amina," he said quietly, "did you see anything unusual today?" She shook her head immediately. "No, sir. I only clean." Victor studied her, searching her expression for any crack, any flicker of fear he could exploit. Amina held steady. She had lived her whole life navigating suspicion, from airports to subways to crowded streets. She had learned how to make herself small when the world tried to make her feel guilty for simply existing. Now, for the first time, that skill might save her life. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced down. His expression shifted, subtle, tight. "The board wants us now," Allison said. "They think Ethan might move against us." Victor pocketed his phone and nodded. "Lock this floor. No one comes in. No one leaves." Amina kept her head lowered as they swept out of the room. The moment the door clicked shut, she spun toward the computer. 96%. 97%. 98%. The loading bar pulsed. The screen flashed green. Data transfer complete. Amina exhaled shakily, pulling the encrypted drive free with trembling hands. She shoved it into her sleeve, kicked the card into motion, and slipped out of the office just seconds before security began sealing off the hallway. She moved like a ghost, silent, invisible, unnoticed, slipping into a service elevator just as the metal doors began to close. Only when she reached the basement did she finally allow herself to breathe. She had the evidence. She had the truth. But Victor Hale had just realized someone was working against him. And he would tear the building apart to find out who. The basement lights flickered above Amina as she pressed her back against the cold concrete wall, clutching the encrypted drive inside her sleeve. Her breath came in short bursts, not from fear of being caught, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Above her, alarms echoed faintly as security sealed off the upper floors. She knew exactly what that meant. Victor Hale had discovered his computer had been accessed. And now he was hunting. Amina forced herself to focus. She had one chance, to get the evidence to Ethan Marlowe before Victor twisted the narrative into something unstoppable. She grabbed her cleaning cart, pushed open the stairwell door, and moved with purpose, but not speed. Speed drew eyes. Purpose drew invisibility. And invisibility was her armor. When she reached the ground floor, chaos rippled through the lobby. Executives murmured in clusters. Security officers rushed upstairs. Rumors flew like sparks. Amina slipped through the commotion unseen, heading straight toward the emergency side exit, the only place Ethan had told her he could meet without being watched. As she turned the final corner, she saw him waiting in the shadows, sleeves rolled up, face tense. "Amina," he whispered urgently, "did you get it?" She didn't speak. She simply pulled the encrypted drive from her sleeve and placed it in his hand. Ethan's chest rose sharply, relief and dread mixing across his expression. "This is everything," he breathed. "Enough evidence to expose Victor and protect the company." His voice softened. "And you're the reason it exists at all." She shook her head. "I just did what was right." Ethan's eyes hardened. "No. You changed the fate of thousands of people who depend on this place." Before he could say more, the fire door slammed open. Heavy footsteps approached. Victor Hale burst into the alley flanked by 2 corporate security officers, men who answered to him, not the company. His eyes locked onto the drive in Ethan's hand. Rage twisted his features. "So it was you," Victor snarled. "You stole from my office." He pointed at Amina. "And you used a cleaning woman to do it?" Ethan stepped in front of her, positioning himself as a shield. "She uncovered your entire operation," he said coldly. "And she saved this company from you." Victor scoffed, venomous. "You think anyone will believe a janitor over me?" He took a step forward, and that's when Amina did something no one expected. She stepped around Ethan, raised her chin, and spoke with steady defiance. "I'm not invisible anymore." Before Victor could respond, sirens wailed. A fleet of black SUVs skidded into the alley. Doors burst open. And stepping out of the lead vehicle was Allison Keene, but instead of her usual icy composure, she was handcuffed, escorted by federal agents. Victor's face drained of color. Ethan's contact at the Justice Department had acted faster than anyone predicted. Agents surrounded Victor in seconds. "Victor Hale," one announced, "you are under arrest for corporate espionage, financial fraud, and conspiracy." Victor shouted protests, but the evidence was overwhelming: documents, recordings, digital trails, all extracted directly from his machine. As he was dragged away, he shot Amina a look of pure hatred. But beneath it, there was fear. Because he finally understood, the woman he never noticed had dismantled his entire empire. When the chaos settled, Ethan turned to Amina with an expression she had never seen on a CEO before: pure, unfiltered respect. "I want you promoted," he said. "Immediately. Head of Internal Compliance." She stared at him, stunned. "Me? Sir, I clean floors." Ethan shook his head. You protected this company better than any executive. You saw what no one else did. He placed a hand over his heart, not out of politeness, but sincerity. Amina, you saved my life. Her throat tightened. She looked down at her gloved hands, hands that had scrubbed floors, emptied bins, polished surfaces, and felt something new bloom inside her, worth. Real, undeniable worth. As dawn cracked over the skyscrapers, employees watched in awe as Amina walked back through the front doors, not pushing a cleaning cart, but escorted beside the CEO himself. The whispers were different now. Admiration. Gratitude. Wonder. And later that week, when Ethan hosted a press conference to expose Victor's crimes, he paused midway and called Amina to the stage. Cameras flashed. Reporters gasped. And Ethan introduced her not as the woman who cleaned their building, but as the guardian who protected thousands. In that moment, the world finally saw what had always been true. The cleaning lady no one noticed had become the hero no one could ignore. If you made it this far, subscribe, leave your like, and tell us where you're watching from. Thank you, and see you next time.